Morning, everybody. Gareth from BTA here for another 5-minute fundamental. Today, I wanted to talk about aeration and the primary uses of aeration and how we size them. Okay, so aeration, obviously, to add oxygen and circulation to the water. And it also degasses CO2 simultaneously. Okay, so in a aquarium, for instance, aeration, if you like air bubbles in your aquarium, will provide an enormous amount of circulation. I mean, look, with the right design, you can move 5,000 litres a minute of water with 100 litres a minute of air in a diffused aeration system. So the amount of water you can move is ginormous. Okay. Now, when we're talking about an aeration system, not so much for aquariums, but, once we start talking to multiple tank systems, whether it be a fish room, whether it be a hatchery, whether it be a grow-out system, we need to take into account sizing, friction loss, and then sizing up the appropriate compressor or side channel blower or air source for that. Okay, so the most important thing to remember is that you only pay for the blower and the pipe work once. You continue to pay for electricity, okay? So, and it's no good ringing up someone or going and looking for, say, a 1 horsepower blower, because when I look at a 1 horsepower blower or 750 watt or 0.75 kilowatt blower, okay, I can have blowers that will go anywhere from 200 litres a minute, 300 litres a minute, right up to about 600 litres a minute, and can have a depth capability or a pressure capability or a head capability of anywhere between 1.5 and 2.1 metres, okay? Now, or even 3 metres, or more. So you need to be aware that just asking for a size of motor doesn't actually mean anything anymore, okay? People put 2 horsepower motors on pumps and change the impeller to derate them so that they're only using about 600 watts of power. Like, asking for a motor size doesn't mean anything anymore, and this is something that everyone needs to sort of move past, okay? Because it definitely results in a lot of erroneous sizing and a lot of problems with performance and also increased energy use as well. Okay, so once moving into aquaculture specifically, once we look at aeration, and we discovered that aeration is a suitable option for the introduction of oxygen into our system. Now, that has a lot to do with filtration, whether you have ozone running on the system, etc., etc. However, generally speaking, we like to pull up the stocking density at about 40 to 50 kilos per cubic meter of water, okay? I know people that push it much further or claim that they push it much further, and I believe it's possible, but there's just not the information out there. And it really all depends on the amount of food being fed, the amount of tan being produced, the amount of CO2 being produced, so on and so forth. So it's, 50 kilos per cube could be at 1% feed rate or at 3% feed rate per day. It just really, it's very hard to quantify. But if we discover that aeration is a suitable option for oxygen introduction into the system, it also, as I said, simultaneously degasses CO2 and helps to circulate water. You could put it into airlift systems if it's in round tanks so that you get the circulation as well. There's multiple different ways you can do it, multiple different diffusers you can use. I myself am a fan of Colorite Aerotube simply because it's got one of the best SOTEs, standard oxygen transfer efficiencies that I've seen. And it doesn't block very readily, I should say. It doesn't block readily, and it has a very uniform bubble size, and it has an incredibly low pressure loss as well. But once you sort all that out, you can then sort out, how much air you need to introduce the amount of oxygen you need. You can then do your friction loss sizing. I myself built a custom-built friction loss sizing for aeration based on meters of equivalent tube and so on and so forth. So that enables us, as I say, you only pay for the pipe and the blower once. You continue to pay for electricity. So that allows me to change the size of the pipework on the inlet and the outlet, as well as the size of the pipework leading down to the diffusers, to optimize the blower and reduce the friction loss as much as possible, to optimize the blower to get you the most air for the least amount of energy. Okay, these are all things that we need to know, at least the things I want to know, to ensure that, you know, we give you the right blower and the right sizing for your application. You can do it on paper, but, you know, as I said, I built a program, so call me. And yeah, so diffuser choice, very important. How you're going to introduce the air, very important. Air lifts or side of the tank, or on an aeration box on the outside of the tank for circulation, or whatever it might be. Then you need to, so once you work all those out, and the amount of oxygen that you need, then you can work out the flow rate of air that you need for the oxygen transfer efficiency of the diffuser that you have. Then you can manipulate the size of the pipe to reduce the head loss and the friction loss overall, to get the right size blower for your application. Air is an incredibly useful tool. You can push the limits with it as long as your system design is good, or thought out correctly, or takes into account all of the different factors that you need to take into account. But aeration's been around a long time, and it's not old technology. It is very current and very, you know, useful technology, and it should be considered. And when it's being considered, it's very important to do it right. And if you need any help with that, call this guy. Have a good Thursday.